It's our last day for Graphite. Yay! So I'm so excited. I can't wait to get this finished. Little Miss Mini-Me is going to help you. She's got a little tool she's going to pick up and show you what we're working on today. We're going to be looking at this dark shaded area that we began at the very beginning of our picture. We're going to relate it to the hairline. So we're going to reshape ours. That means I'm reshaping mine. We're going to go into this ear. We're going to look down through our jawline area just to make sure that our refining is well, what we need to be doing. We're going to be darkening up this area within the face and down through here, because when you look at mine, and I'll show you that a little bit later, I have to move the camera, it's a little too light. So it almost looks like she's wearing a turtleneck. So we need to darken some areas. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. All right. First of all, let me take off Miss Mini-Me. Goodbye. And we're going to get started in this area. Let's go up into the temple. Let's see how your temple is. Does it look as if you have this curved line, and on the inside of the butterfly, you have a darker area that's kind of swooped? Well, it looks almost as if it could come straight up like this in a little bit of a curve. So let's see if yours has that. So I'm going to take my handy dandy blending stump that we've used in the past. And first I can see that my butterfly area does need to be darker. So again, this is a video on refining. Things need to be toned down a little bit. That was just a little bit too bright, a little too big for a number one. So I'm going to flare this out a little bit. Let's look at the bag. Does the bag have a little bit of a connection through here as well? Well, I'm going to borrow a little bit of graphite. And I'm going to come back up inside this area where my eyebrow is, and my eyebrow is noticeably darker than this area. But particularly, I want to work on this shape. Now, how can I do that? Well, if I have a black ebony pencil, which I know you do, we're going to look at this shape, because up here it looks as if my hair's a little bit too light. And I said that at the end, we would go through this together. So right here, if I were to continue my eyebrow on this top line, it looks as if I would hit an indentation of her face. Here's where the cheekbone ends, and this would be like the beginning of where the forehead is. So again, here's the end, and maybe I want to continue this out a little bit. So again, it's always about refining. Right here is where that indentation is. So I know that this area through here is going to be darker inside, and from here down. What shade is this? So I want you to ask yourself again, back and forth. You're always questioning and answering. If you know what the shade is here, then what could this be? Well, this might be a little bit trickier to guess than the outside. The outside, in comparison with what we had up here at the very beginning, we said this was a 10. So I would venture to say that that's pretty close to that, maybe a 9.5. And this area up here would be a 10. So outside of my eyebrow, right here, and I'm coming in from root to tail, coming inwards, I want to make that little area. I don't want to go too far down because my ear is going to start there. Okay? So here we've got root to tail, and I'm going to follow this up through here, as we have it already. So this is just like a connection. Root to tail, root to tail. Okay, great. Now, towards the face. Yes, she doesn't have a sideburn, but she does have hair that comes down. Now, how far does it come? Well, let's side it up. Make sure your paper is vertical with your big paper. Put your hand on your pencil, and we're going to put it right at the bottom of where that sideburn would be, but she doesn't have it. You can see that her eyes are on a slant. So you see that my pencil has the same slant, right, as the eyes. But yet where that sideburn is, where does it end? Well, it's about midway through the shaft. So I know that when I pull this away, midway of the shaft, It's about here. So that's about the right proportion to where I need to be. So that's just double checking with where I am. I don't want to make it too low though. So I'm just going to be on the air of caution. I'm just going to err on the side of caution. And I'm going to be really careful with the side of this head just to shape it. Okay, now I can make a line here because I know I'm going to be disguising that line by adding hair down. Correct? I'm starting at the root to tail, root to tail, root to tail. Well, right here, what do we do? Well, this does get to be a bit of a softer blend. Okay? So carefully, I'm just going to strike through it, dart through that little area. And at the same time, I could either pick up my blending stump and I could blend that softly. And I can also take my pink pearl eraser because we do have some highlights, and I can strike through it just to blend. You want to push a little bit harder to blend those baby hairs we had talked about up through here. If you want them to be very fine hairs, you would switch over to your 2B, which is very sharp, and you would strike through those blonde hairs just to show the individual hair, which blends all the way up. Okay, so that's the baby hair area in the temple. All right, let's go down here into the ear. The ear is pretty washed out. The ear bottom, and we had discussed that earlier. Again, I'm going to line up my pencil to the bottom of my eyes. It's a diagonal. Let's go down as far as where I think it is, about right here. So it's about to the top of the nostril. And that's what we discussed last time. So let's see that again. About the top of the nostril, that's where I am. Okay, so I'm pretty good there. Now, question and answer time. What's darker? Well, this throws us off because I believe there's a picture in the background. And that is lighter, isn't it? Well, let's look at the tone of the wall, though. When we ended, and we haven't quite gotten to that area yet, if I was to continue this all the way up, what do you think is darker? And this gets to be a little tricky. Well, we are going to let the wall stay light. The ear is actually going to be darker, and I'm going to let it just kind of morph into the background. So what I have here, and I know it's a number 1 right now, I'm just going to let that fade down a little bit. But before I do this, I really should go in and do the ear because I don't want to lose it. So how do we do that? Well, I don't want to draw it in with my pencil. So instead, I'd like to pick up on our handy dandy little blending stump that we created. It has some graphite on it. If you're afraid it has too much, I taught you how to wipe it off. Take your pencil, just bring it over to your paper and kind of wipe it off. And let's go ahead and begin. So the inside of the ear, let's go ahead and fill that in. Before I do, let me ask you a question really quickly. What is darker here, the face or the ear? Well, there is a darker separation, but where is that separation? Well, I can see it's the hair when I'm up here to the ear, but then what happens here? Well, guess what? It changes over onto the earlobe. Well, that means that I have to get a little bit of graphite very carefully. I'm going to make the earlobe darker than the face on this side. Do you see what I did? That's the earlobe. Okay, now with ovals, let's blend this out. Blend it out. And yes, the ear does disappear into the background, and it's okay if yours does. That's okay. But the ear does need to be darker than this background up here. And you can see how I'm getting that taken care of here. I'm going up. I'm borrowing a little bit of the graphite I already have. We have to be kind of careful. I'm going up into the hair, and you can see it's making this area darker, and that's okay. All right, so now it's all blended out. Now, if you noticed, I did not erase my pencil line, but on the outside of her ear, it is a little bit of a darker shade. So if you very carefully take your black ebony pencil And right where it starts to turn lighter in your background up here, I'm going to begin a slight shade, not a lot, just a slight one. And we all have this inner crease. I'm just going to draw a little bit of a crease right here. That's the inside of an ear. See that little line that I did? All right, let's go ahead and blend that slightly, and we're going to move on. And if you need to change over and add a new tortillon or blending stump to your repertoire, to your family of blending stumps, please do. Because sometimes they need to be a little sharper. Okay, so here we have a darker shade just on the outside a little bit. Let it fade down here. See how mine's faded? Maybe I would like to blend that out a little bit. Maybe I'd like that to be a little darker. So I'm going to blend this out just a little bit more so it kind of blends into the background. Turning it to the side, put a little bit of pressure on this, a little bit more, so it kind of disguises it. Then we have our crease. We have our outer crease. Just going to tone that down a little bit. Now the hair. Okay, so our hair definitely strikes over the ear. If you would like to take your 2B pencil, you can. And we're going to strike this through to give it the individual hair. Absolutely. Quick, freely, loose lines. Remember, these are like quickly, freely, loosely gesture lines. At the same time, right here, I notice this is a little too light on her face compared to what I have here. Now, I didn't blend it out earlier because I was afraid I'd lose my ear. I was afraid you'd lose yours. So I'm going to add a little bit of graphite on my paper towel, and I'm going to go up to where this nice darker area is on her cheekbone. Okay, so that's about right here. I'm going to darken this over, and I'm going to bring it up slightly. All right, that's my plan of attack. Here we go. So I'm staying close. I'm just going to darken that up a little bit. Okay. Now, as I darken this up, you can see how this is still white. Well, is her face a number 1 there? Meaning that, is it as bright as what you see down through the shaft and these little lines there? Not so much. So I have to strike through that. So I'm going to move this aside a little bit, get rid of my supplies here. And we're, again, just going to refine for what we have. Let's look at the eye area into the nose and the cheekbone coming up to this area. Right where my finger is right here is probably the lightest area. So how do I get that? Well, carefully, I'm going to darken this area by creating the perimeter that we talked about in past videos and in class, because I would like for this area to stay lighter. And by doing that, you have to surround the perimeter with a little bit of a low light. Now I'm going to bring this down. Okay. And again, we're going to keep refining. On the edge of her face, you can see it's a little bit of a highlight area, but down here, mine's a little bit too light. But I want to make sure that I give shades where shades are due. I don't want anything to fade away. So what I'm going to do to bring this ear into focus a little bit more, everyone, is very carefully, I'm going to add a little line and blend that out with my handy dandy blending stump. Okay, that way they don't totally mush together. There, we have a little bit of a separation. Now, through here, if I need to tone that down, I can do that. I can either pat it with my paper towel. So I can pat it a little bit. You can see how we're getting rid of that. So it's not quite as apparent. But in looking at this, I still think that her jawline needs to be a little darker. So I'm going to move my camera down a little bit with us. Okay. And now, load up my paper towel. And we can see this area still needs to be a little darker. I don't want to make her look too dirty, though. That's something that artists have a tendency to do when we first begin, is we always say, well, I'm afraid to do it too dark because I'm afraid she's going to end up looking like she's dirty. Here's that point. And now we're going to continue down through this area that we did not do the other day. We're going to finish this up. Because right now when you look at mine, and I'm going to move the camera down just a skosh more and bring this up. Do you see how she almost looks like she's wearing a turtleneck? She looks a little dark in the turtleneck department. So we're going to be working on this area just a little bit. Okay. So in looking at my picture, right here, this is going to have to be a little darker for me. And I can see I have a highlight here and here, but it's not quite a number 1. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to darken this area. Before I touch any of this, I want to make sure I do that. So down here, and I'm going to put my eraser on here because it seems to want to flare up. Down here, I'm going to keep darkening this a little bit. We're going to go down towards the chin area. And I'm going to round it off right here. So what I'm working on is this little area right here. And you can see it's a little darker. It's not quite as white up there, so I'm just going to pop that, tone that down a little bit. We talked in the last video about this area, or the video before, being a little darker. And this area coming off of here. Okay. Coming out of the nose, very carefully, and I'm doing this with this, and I have to do it carefully. With you, you could do it with your finger. I'm now going to see this glow that I have, and I want to strike through this because it's not quite much as a glow through here as it is on top and near the infranasal depression, which is this area between the nose and the lips. So here we have a little bit of a darker area, and you can see I overshot mine a smidge. So I need to pop that with my kneaded eraser. And again, remember the great words of Bob Ross, there's no mistakes, there's only happy accidents. Is that what he said? He said something like that, which was adorable. No mistakes in art. Okay, so we're just going to kind of roll that a little bit and pop it. You see that my area is a little bit too bright. So I have a choice. I could take a flattened paper towel, which I think I'm going to do because I don't want to eat into my little neck, and I'm going to put graphite underneath or paper underneath my hand so I don't get graphite on my hand. And now I'm going to roll this because I don't want her to look like she has a turtleneck. And this area, which is white, isn't quite that white. It is a glow, but it's not quite white. I'm just going to cross through that a little bit. Right under here, towards the bottom of her lip, is where that area gets a little darker. It's got like what looks like could be a little pouch right here. You see that? Okay, so as we're working on this, now we're going to continue to go over towards this direction. So I'm going to be moving my things over for me to do. Let's go ahead and continue with the chin. So this area, I'm looking at this again. This is not brighter than what the nose is. Oh, my camera moved on me. Sorry, everyone. Hopefully you can see what I was just pointing to. What I was saying is this area is not as bright as the highlights that we have inside the nose area. So I still need to tone that down a little bit. Okay, and in doing so, it's going to make her look again like she's not wearing a turtleneck. But instead, it's her flesh tone. All right, so let's look at this. I wish my paper would quit doing that. I loaded up a little bit. So I'm just going to strike through that area that we did yesterday because I didn't want to make it too bright. Now you can see it's starting to get soft and it's looking better. So let's continue to smidge over towards the right. And I keep moving my tools as I go. Loading up the paper towel a little bit. And again, Mr. Crammer happened to turn. Sorry, everybody. He's connected to my laptop and he's got a tail. There we go. How's that? Is that a little better for you? I'm going to move her over to here now so you can see this a little better. So let's line this up together. Let's look at this area. And we can see right through here it needs to be a little darker in comparison with our picture. Hopefully you still have your little picture. If you don't, you can look at mine as you draw. I'll share. I love to share. I might borrow a little bit of graphite down here. And again, that area at the bottom still needs to be darker. This little dimple that she had, I'm just going to darken that up a little bit towards the area where the corner of her mouth is. And this is a rounded area. I don't know if you can see that, but where we did that little white dimple the other day, it is a round area. If you would like to switch over to a blending stump to do this very delicate area, you can. There's a slight shadow here. All right, kind of fades out a little bit. You can do that. One thing we really didn't do is the belly of the cheek, this bottom area here. Okay, we're going to tone that down a little bit. We had said first that the nose was going to be darker than this area. Yes, it is. And we're going to climb up there. But first, let's finish this. So we're coming from the outer edge because it's always better to come from a darker area. And just be careful. And we're going to go up towards above her right nostril. And when I did that, I'm still keeping this area alone because this is lighter when you look at your picture here. It's a little lighter. I'm going to go over that lovely beauty mark that I made. And I can see that something's starting to pop already here. And that is from that oil spot that I had. So we're just going to get rid of that by just popping that a little bit. That takes that out of there. And I still feel as if I need to darken from this highlight because there is a highlight glow on the inside of this outer cheekbone. Close to that, I'm going to darken it. I don't want to overshoot it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my blending stump and very carefully from the glow, which is here, it's on the inside of that, it's to the right of that, I'm going to add a little bit of a darker area. Not through the whole area, I'm not going to strike through it, but it is up through the outer part of that glow. Down where her little dimple highlight is, I'm going to bring it down through here. And again, we do circles. At the bottom here, I do have a highlight. So I want to warn you, there is a highlight here where the face meets the neck. But there's also a low light, and I'm going to add this in right up against the highlight. Do you see that line I'm creating right here? That's what she has. And then when you switch to the outside, the face becomes darker than the outside. So here's a darker shade, but then it comes inside. There's your highlight. So it kind of changes over. All right, and I'm going to kind of fade this down. This is my next move. I'm going to fade this down into here, making that all smooth. Okay, blending that all together. Now I can see on my video that this went a little long. It's actually connected to the last video. I don't understand what happened there, and I do apologize. But hopefully we got all of that. I'm just going to finish this up here, everyone, with checking this area. I didn't realize that my last video, I think, is attached, and I do apologize. I hope you'll be able to get it. We're going to darken this up a little bit like what we did the other one. And the only last thing to do, everyone, is your hair. Keeping in mind, we have a very sharp area with your neck. Here's that outer glow. Sharpen that up just a tad. This I'm going to tone down a smidge by darkening the background. To prepare. Here's our neck area, which is darker. The neck or the background Well, the overall the neck is, but the highlight, which is separating between the hair and her shoulder, that is going to be a little bit brighter. So I'm going to throw down some graphite. I'm going to try to hurry up and finish this up, everyone, because I know it's getting a little long. Maybe I can create an edit that will help us out so it won't be so long. A little bit of a shade, and I'm just going to come up here just slightly. Okay. Because now what we have is the hair. So we're coming from the neck area, and they're just little raspies that are going to stop at the neck. Well, where is the neck? Well, it's okay if I go in and I draw this hard edge right here. That's okay because we see that right there, don't we? Now, that's my guideline for where my hair needs to begin. And it is going to be darkest in this corner. And as I taught you before, we do a base shade. I don't want to totally connect that, and guess what? You can't see that, can you? All right, I'm going to talk through what I just did. I did not realize my camera wasn't showing. So I darkened this area through here, okay? What I was talking about is there's a highlight right here. Now the highlight, you have a low light on the inside. Up against it, we have that number 10 again, and I went through and refined it. All right, blended that out a little bit. Then I had said there's a highlight here to where the shoulder is. This is the neck, this is the shoulder. So I took this blending stump and I blended very carefully because I had said, even though you couldn't see it, and I apologize, and this is a one-shot deal, and I hope you all understand, I can't redo this video because the face will be done. I can't erase it and redraw it. Unfortunately, it's like live television, live camera. But we learn to adapt. And that's what the whole process has been. So we're just going to let this stay light up here. That's that corner I was referring to, which is going to be lighter. What I did with the hair, as I said, it was okay to draw this kind of a wonky looking angle, which is like a weird L. And I drew quickly, freely, loosely lines with my black ebony. And this is our base shade. I'm going to go in and shade that. Well, also at the same time, do you see how there's some raspy areas up here too? That's her hair, right? So I'm going to draw a few of those up through here also. And the last thing is going to be highlights coming in, because again, root to tail, coming out, root to tail. Make that look like hair. And if you want to flip it up, I know hers goes down, but if you want to make it look more like hair, we need to have quickly, freely, loosely lines here. And we can darken the root up if we need to, so it looks a little bit more realistic. Okay, so I'm just going to do my own thing through here, so that way it looks more like hair. All right, everyone, I love you. God bless you. This is the finished product of what we have. And I don't know if you can see it all, but I'm going to try to extend my camera. I don't think I can, but hopefully you've learned quite a bit. So as I hold it up here and my whole thing goes away, you can see our shades and what they look like. Okay? Bless your hearts, everyone. I love you all, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.